So, good evening, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. And I know because we have some gentlemen who have joined as well. Thank you so much for joining us for our webinar this evening. It is always exciting to meet with friends every so often and to meet with friends over a cup of tea, over a drink of wine. And I hope you have your cup of tea or your glass of wine somewhere close by. If you don't, please grab it quickly before we start. My name is Catherine Musakali, and I am the chair of the Women on Boards Network. For those of you who are not yet our members, the Women on Boards Network was started way back in 2013 with a single reason of making sure that Kenyan boards are more diverse than they currently were or than they were in 2013. And that's because at Women on Boards, we believe that diversity is critical for the success of any organization. Why? Because when you have a board thinking in a diverse manner, when you have a board receiving ideas from people who think differently and act differently, the decisions that they make are bound to be very good decisions for the organization. And so that is why Women on Boards is so passionate about ensuring that our boards in Kenya are more diverse than they are. But many times I have been asked, but where are these board positions? How do we get these board positions? How do we sit on boards? And when we get onto boards, how do we add value to the boards? How do we make sure that our voice is heard? That when we talk about diversity, that we also must include inclusivity. And so that's why this tea this afternoon, this drink this evening is very important, because we are going to be hearing from two of the finest female board members in Kenya, who are going to share with us their journey, who are going to share with us their thoughts about how women can add value to boards and how women can get onto those boards. And so without wasting too much time, allow me to introduce you to our moderator this evening, this afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. And her name is Faith Nkatha Gitonga. Faith is a great friend of mine, one of those young people I look up to. But most importantly, Faith is a member of the board of Women on Boards Network. And she chairs the committee that is responsible for finance and partnerships. Faith, over to you.
Thank you, Catherine. And thank you everyone for joining on time. I am really excited. I just want us to raise our drinks, and if you're with someone next to you, you can do cheers. And oh, wow, I see the wine glasses, I see the smiles. I love that everybody dressed up as well. Doesn't it feel nice to just hang out with a friend, even though it's virtually, and just to get to have a good chat? And that's what we'll be doing today. Just a few housekeeping rules. Let's keep ourselves on mute, so that we can be able to listen to the main people speaking. Have your drink and please continue taking it as you have a chat and talk and all that. And the other thing that's important, please put your questions on the chat. And just type it out clearly, read through it, and then post it. It's going to be very interactive. I am so excited. I feel like standing up and just, waving. In fact, I know most of you are as excited as I am. You know how they do in gatherings and churches, and they're like, turn to your neighbor and tell them, neighbor, it's going to be lit. Let's just try that even though you're seated in the room by yourself. Let's do it. 1, 2, go, neighbor. It's going to be lit. Yeah, because it's going to be so lit. Yes, thank you, Catherine. Without much further ado, I just want to introduce these two amazing ladies. And one of the things that I've learned as I do my reflections in this season is to do proper introductions, not to rush through it. So as you sip on your tea, your wine, or your water like me, I'm going to just properly introduce these two amazing ladies today. So I'll just get started right now. Please listen in. I'll start with Miss Patricia Ithao. Patricia is passionate about creating opportunities that improve people's lives. Her love for identifying enduring consumer and commercial insights to support the development of brands and grow businesses was actualized in a career spanning 25 years across 3 global companies, namely Unilever, Diageo, and L'Oreal. In the last 8 years of that career, her focus was on setting up new organizations and opening new frontiers as Managing Director for Uganda Breweries Limited, then Managing Director for EABL International, and her last role setting up L'Oreal East Africa, subsidiary of the global multinational, as its inaugural Managing Director. She pivoted her passion for transforming lives to drive scaling and transformation of SMEs, the largest job creation sector in all emerging economies. She makes that a reality as a regional director for the Stanford Institute for Innovation in Developing Economies, SEED Trademark East Africa, the multi-donor initiative with the overall goal of reducing poverty in the East African region through the year-long Stanford Transformational Program for local business leaders. The program in the last 3 years has supported the sustainability, revenue growth, and job expansion of, listen to this guys, of over 170 small to medium-sized companies, demonstrating real impact through the age-old idiom, teach a man to fish and you will feed him for a lifetime. Patricia also sits on the boards of Absa Bank Kenya Limited, the Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA, Jambojet Limited, and WPP Scan Group Limited, all of which lean on her expertise on growing enterprise and the SME sector in particular. She builds on the positive impact of development funding as a board member of Trademark East Africa, the multi-donor initiative with the overall goal of reducing poverty in the East African region through reduction of trading barriers and increased trade competitiveness of the region, and brings to life her enduring desire to connect corporate business with social sustainability investment as a trustee on the board of the Vodafone Foundation UK. Wow, I'll drink to that. Let's give her a round of applause, everybody. So I'll read the bio from Rita and just do a brief introduction. So Rita Kavashe is the Managing Director of Isuzu East Africa Limited, formerly General Motors East Africa, the largest motor vehicle assembler in the region, selling a wide range of Isuzu vehicles. Her career in General Motors began in 1995 in its East African operations, where she has worked for the last 25 years. Prior to her current position, Rita held several key roles in sales and marketing organizations, both in Kenya and South Africa, and participated in General Motors sponsored leadership programs, including the Harvard Business School Leadership Program. Rita holds a bachelor's degree in education received from Moi University and a master's degree in business administration from the University of Nairobi. She's also an executive coach certified by the Academy of Executive Coaches, UK. Rita is currently the chairperson of the Kenya Roads Board and the vice chair of Kenya Private Sector Alliance, KEPSA. She also serves as a member of the Kenya Vision 2030 Delivery Board, Boma Pan-African Limited, and the University of Eldoret Endowment Trust Board of Trustees. Rita is also a non-executive director on the boards of Bamburi Cement Limited and BAT Kenya PLC, both being listed firms on the NSE, the Nairobi Securities Exchange. In 2017, Rita was awarded, wait for it guys, a state honor, the Moran of the Order of the Burning Spear, for exemplary service to the country in her capacity as a business leader. Wow. Everyone, let's put our hands together and welcome these two amazing ladies. And it's such a great honor to hand over this platform to you, Rita and Patricia. Karibu Sana, take over. We are all ears, waiting to hear and learn from you. As I said earlier, if you have any questions, please put them on the chat. I'll read through them and I'll answer them. You can even have your name there so you get a mention on this event. So over to you, Rita and Patricia.
Thank you very much, Faith. And thank you for inviting us to join Women on Board. Let's have tea with Rita and Patricia this evening. Maybe later in this conversation, we will tell you how we ended up hosting this particular discussion this afternoon. But if your profile is not to the level of Patricia Ithao's profile, put that down as something you will do after this discussion this afternoon. Because when organizations are looking for leaders, they are looking for those keywords. So please, I have already noted down to go and improve my profile to be at the level of Patricia's profile. The beauty of networking, I've not had time to read Patricia's profile, but I've just had those powerful words and I have work to do. So again, thank you for joining us this evening to really chat around how can we increase the role of women in boards and in leadership position. But maybe before we get started, let me just look at some facts about what is happening right now. The number of women in leadership position globally is still very, very low. It's not an issue about our country, Kenya, but it is a global challenge. Despite many efforts made by policymakers to increase representation of women decision-making positions, very few Kenyan women hold leadership positions in the workplace, and therefore very few women hold board position, because you need to rise to a particular level to be able to sit on a board. According to the 2019 report by the Nairobi Securities Exchange, or NSC, gender equity in Kenya, women accounted for 23% of board members in companies listed in the NSC. This is a slight increase since 2017, when it stood at 21%, according to the Diversity and Inclusion Report from the Kenya Institute of Management, KIM. Although this number has actually been increasing steadily from 18% recorded in 2015, it is clear that the barriers are still holding back many Kenyan women who dream of making it to business leadership position as well as into board position. The question therefore remains, what can women do to break the barriers? How can we as women help each other to climb up the corporate ladder and press for progress? Just before we started this conversation, we had 30 minutes. Faith, Catherine, Hannah, myself, and Patricia. And we were just helping each other to get ready to be able to chat with you. And it was warm and nice, easy and relaxed. So how can we do more of that so that we can bring our women up, so we can hold each other's hands, so that we're not just the few people who are getting recycled into board positions. But before we engage into that discussion, just allow me a few more minutes and keep the question on how can we help each other get up for a while, so that I speak a little bit about what do boards look for. There are different types of boards. There are government boards, and sometimes government boards are looking for gender, they're looking for men or women. They're looking at regional balance. So they're looking for people from communities, some communities, especially the marginalized in Kenya, you know, with the purpose of diversity and inclusion, government will be looking for people in marginalized communities. government will be looking to gift, political gift. You helped me during a campaign, I have taken up a leadership role. The only way to reward my friend is to seek a board position for them. So you get a board position because of that political support. Some government institutions, they have what we call their act requires that for you to sit in a board, you have to be nominated, either a business association like KEPSAC, Law Society of Kenya, etc. So that is kind of the background for government board positions, so that you can see how you fit in. So if you are not a member of the Kenya Automobile Association, for instance, or Kenya Association of Manufacturers, it's very difficult for you to sit in the board that I chair, Kenya Roads Board. So if you want to work in government, you need to understand the act and the mandate so that you can really be able to strategize and network around getting there. How about private boards? Private boards have objectives. They have needs. They could be including NSC, and I believe NGO. I've not had an opportunity to engage with NGOs, but I believe they have an objective. What are they trying to push? Maybe they're trying to push an IT transformation because they are banks and they want to leverage technology to grow their business. So they'll be looking for those type of people. Maybe they're suffering, they're struggling with tax-related issues, so they want to get a tax expert. Maybe they want to network, to profile themselves better with government because they're trying to drive a particular policy that will enable them to invest in a country or to invest in a line. So they need policy that assure their investment.
Rita, you've turned your sound off. Somehow you've gone on mute.
At what point? At what point did I mute myself?
The last two sentences.
Patricia, be of help. So I was talking about, like private boards and the objective. So I think I covered that quite a bit in terms of what they're trying to drive, whether it's networking and whether it's IT transformation policy and all that. So I think I've covered a bit all that. So there's government, there's private. So it's very important for us as we look for these opportunities and these positions to be able to understand the structures and what these companies look for. For private, you'll be called for an interview. For government, it might you just see your name gazetted or something like that. So then with that in mind, how then can let's go back now to the question with that context. What can women do? What can we do? It's a question for all of us. Patricia and I don't have all the answers, but Faith, I think that is the question that I want us to pose, and maybe you can take it over and Patricia can jump in.
Okay, thank you, Rita. I mean, that was fantastic context around structures, around the fundamentals, around the things that, that people look for as you are looking for to get into boards. I'm going to now go into the softer things. So she's given the hardware. I'm now going to go into some of the software elements. And I'll start the software by just sharing a little context about my life and my story and how I wound up being in boards. And I tell this story to everybody, by the way. So it's anybody who has heard it, please pretend you haven't heard it. You're going to hear it again. And the story I always tell is that from the time I was a young girl, maybe 8, 9, I'd look at the newspapers. And those days, when they used to issue annual reports, it's not like now where they just paste the numbers and everything else. They used to be accompanied with the faces of all the directors, yeah? And even as a young girl, I look at these things, flick through the newspaper, and you see all these people who are on boards. And there was one outstanding feature. about all those things. All the people on those boards were all men, and invariably old men. But when you're 8, when somebody's 20, they're old. So, but generally to me, they just basically looked all old. And I think that's when the seed was sown, because I really couldn't understand, how is it? So is there something that makes it that it's only a man who can sit at a board? In fact, even at that age, I used to ask myself, maybe there's a criteria. Maybe it's because they wear particular clothes. Maybe it's because of the way they dress. Maybe. And I think that's where the seed started to be sown, around my interest and my passion around how do we change the face of boards in the context that I live in, which is my country and wherever else I live. So that is part of the history and the background and the context which I'd like to share. But now let me go a little bit now into building on some of the points that Rita has started to allude to. Now, a lot of times, people assume that what you're thinking, that they know. Where am I going with this? How many people know they want to be on a board, but it's where? It's in their head. Yes, they sit in their head and they say, I want to be on a board, okay? But they don't tell anybody. They don't share this desire. They don't share this ambition. They don't share this goal of their life, but it's something that they wish. And when they talk about it, maybe they're sitting with friends and like, look at all these people become boards. Why can't I be? But that person they're speaking to really is not somebody who's necessarily going to help. And let me go into the context then and take you back to my thinking. And as I grew up, I started to understand how it is that it was always men. And by the way, these men, you look from one company, again, it's the same type of set. Again, it's another type of set, the same individuals. For those of you who are in my generation, you might know some of the Kimoli names, your Bura names, all those ones. They would appear in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 different boards. And that's when I first heard of this concept called Old Boys Network. So I completely understood the old, because to me, they always looked old. And certainly they were boys. But I started to understand this thing called network, Old Boys Network. So today we're sitting here on a webinar on the Women on Board Network. It is a first formalization for women of that Old Boys Network that used to exist. Because let me tell you, to be on boards, a lot of times, it is exactly what Rita has alluded to. Why is it it's the same group that comes in? Because it's the same group that will refer to the next group. How is it it's the same women who are called upon? Because when you're sitting somewhere and you know Patricia has been on a board, they know Rita is on a board. What do they do when they're sitting somewhere? What about Rita? What about Patricia? Because those are the names that they know. So where am I going with this story? The story I'm going with is that we need to not just keep it in our head that we want to be on board. We have to find a way of sharing our desire, sharing what it is we want to do. But the second thing is sharing it in the right forum that's going to actualize this desire that we need to be on boards. Then now the next bit of software comes in around, fine, why do I want to be on the board? Just so that I can feel good, I give a pat, I can say I'm a board member, I'm a director, or is it because I actually believe it's going to be a two-way relationship? In everything, there has to be a symbiotic relationship. One is, what am I going to give? And the other one, what are they going to get from me being on that board? And these are the things that a lot of times, as you start to work yourself and figure out, I want to be on a board, we don't completely internalize. Because even when I sit down and somebody tells me, oh, I really want a board position, I ask them, which one? And they haven't thought about it. What value are you going to add? What type of board do you want to sit on? For what reason? Yeah. So again, there's all those things that you have to think about. So Rita and I have both had, for example, the opportunity to sit on both public and private sector boards. So my 2 opportunities to sit on a public sector board The first one I knew about, the second I didn't know. It just appeared on a gazette, just like she said, and I was there, and it's the way it is because people figured. So the first one was Brand Kenya. And how did I wind up being on the Brand Kenya board? What was the rationale and the thinking? I was chairman of the Marketing Society of Kenya. I built this campaign around Brand Kenya, spent a lot of time. This was after what we call the rainbow election. There was an enormous amount of goodwill. And we said, how do we distill this amazing euphoria and goodwill that we had as a country by creating a strategy that could brand our country? Managed to speak to many different stakeholders, the ministers, and eventually had an opportunity to present it to the president at the time, who was Mwai Kibaki, a visionary, a person, an economist who could see concepts and future and everything else. And from that, over time and over a few years, he believed that, okay, we can form this authority called the Brand Kenya Board, and that's how I was invited to be on that particular board. The second one now, because they figured you've always been a marketer, was a Kenya Tourism Board. They figured, okay, oh, who do we need? We have marketers. So that's how I wound up on that one. So there was something in that, if you listen to that, that you've built a credibility in a particular field. Therefore, it makes sense when people are looking for somebody in that particular skill area for them to say, ah, that's a person. Why don't we get that particular person? So even as you share your CV, you have to profile it to talk about where your capability is, where your strength is, so that there is a fit between the value you're going to give and what that organization is going to get from you. So these are the next stages when I talk about, the software around getting onto boards. So I've talked about 3 concepts there. One is, if you want something, you have to let people know that you want it. But you don't just let anybody know. You have to let the right people know who can do something about it. The next thing is having clarity around what is your strength. And therefore, if that is my strength, this is a sort of area where I believe I can add value and you can get value from me. Being very clear about that. Very, very important. So those are the few things that I'd like to share as an introduction now. And I'd like to allow us to just open the conversation now, because we've had all the hardware, which Rita has filled in, and I've given a little bit more of software. So I'd like us now to actually go into a more engaging, open conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patricia. And thank you, Rita, as well. We've gotten to hear the hardware and the software. Thank you for sharing personal stories as well. We appreciate that. In case you're just joining us, this is an amazing event organized by Women on Boards Network. If you have any questions, like I said earlier, please put them on the chat. I'm seeing quite a number coming in. And let's put them on the public chat as well. I'm getting a lot on my private room. Let's put them on the public chat so that everyone else can comment as well. Agnes Mashaka says, a great platform for great women. Let's come out of this cocoon and strive to drive boards to succeed. And I think that's where the first question will come from. And I think Rita sort of alluded to that. How do we support each other to get out of this cocoon, and just be ready? And do I say ideal or fit in? So many times when we have board talks, we talk about women being tokens on the board, in board, so how do we make sure we are not that as well? And if Rita and Patricia are already on boards and many other women like you, how do we lift up the others so that we are all in this ideal space, that we are board worthy, so to speak? So maybe we can start on that. I'm seeing more questions coming in and I'll share them as we go. So back to you, Patricia and Rita.
Patricia, I can go first.
Yes.
Yeah, getting out of the cocoon, to be honest, it's work. It's hard work. I give an example. I joined one of your sessions in Naivasha, and I'm already sitting on boards, but I wanted to connect with someone I've not been able to connect with, but in my perception, he's an individual of influence. I want to connect. I want to be in his network. So the meeting was in Naivasha. I had two alternatives: to either go to a KEPSA meeting, we were meeting, I don't know, it was senator, to come to your event. So I wanted to network with John Gomi in a more personal way where there's enough time and not in a rush. How do I do that? I say, because he's going to be in the panel that is coming to Naivasha, I am dropping my interest to go to Mombasa. I am going to Naivasha. One, I wanted to be with women and share my experience. It gives me great pleasure. But also I wanted to connect. So it was a win-win situation for me. So I invested my time to drive all the way to Naivasha to be able to connect and also to be known by the women, the leaders who are there. So we cannot be in this cocoon. Patricia said, you can't sit and wish. You can't sit and wish. It will never happen. You have to step out and to put yourself in position where you can be noticed, you can be listened to. What type of an individual, what type of a leader are you? What are your areas of expertise? How do you network? In this call this evening, there are many people here. There are many leaders. There are company secretaries. They're involved in identifying people for board position. They could be checking out Patricia and myself right now saying, next board position, we're going to invite these people to sit with us. So get out and get known. Be deliberate. Networking is not up in your house. It's out there doing work. I talked about wanting to serve in a board, for instance, of a government institution. If you're not a member of ISPAC, it's very difficult for you to land at Roads Board or any other organization that they require ISPAC member. You're not just a member at ISPAC. You are in the governing council. You're in the governing council of KEPSA. You are in a board position at Kenya Association of Manufacturers. You are not just member there. You are member adding value. Because when they are nominating people for board positions, they don't just go to check the long list of members of ISPAC or Kenya Association of Manufacturers or KEPSA. They look for people or leadership, people who are already demonstrating leadership capabilities and that they can represent the interest of those associations where they're going to be board members. So that is part of getting out of the cocoon. Put yourself there, start to serve, because board position is service. We are sitting here offering service, sharing our experiences, our know-how, to talk to you so that we can improve on the whole issue about women and women sitting on boards. So it's more your desire to serve enables you to get in position of leadership and in turn get into board position, not from the house. And now we have got no excuse. The corona pandemic, when we were at Naivasha with Catherine and group, how do we get on boards? Mudaiga Club and all that. Mudaiga Club has been brought to our homes. So what's our excuse? We are suffering from work-life balance. We have these children and we have to rush home, our husbands and our what? Okay, now we are doing it in the comfort of our home. If I want to stop you ladies, I can say, hold on, my daughter can come in and we can have a chit chat and we can continue. So life has been made even easier. So the cocoon, there's no cocoon now. You just blow it off and let's go in. Maybe I hand over to Patricia to also share.
Now I'm going to build on a point that she made. Did you hear Rita said she wanted to go network with an individual in Naivasha? Now, let me tell you, as we sit in this session today, I'm going to again just give a bit of advice to everybody who's on this call. We're going to talk a lot of things, but try and take out a maximum of 3 thoughts from whatever it is we share. And the one that I'd really like you to remember is this thing that you need a champion. You need somebody to champion for you. And let me explain what I mean by a champion. So the point I made was that at the end of the day, we've all said that, yes, you're going to get into the network. Yes, you're going to have people speak for you and everything else. And yes, you might get people. So for example, on my phone, every time people ask me they want to be on a board, I've got I could show you the chat where I just type the name so that, because when somebody asks you, you go blank, you can't think of a name. So every time somebody asks me, I put them down and say, oh, have you thought of XYZ? But let me go with a thought around this network and why Rita felt she needed to network with a particular individual in Naivasha. And this is where one of the most powerful things that you need to learn. You need to identify an influencer who is going to be your champion. Because that influencer is a person who's always going to figure out at some point when something happens, oh, by the way, there is Patricia. Or by the way, there is Rita. And I promise you, the sooner you identify who that individual, one or two individuals are, the better. Now, it's all very well to say that because we're all women, they should all be women. No, I believe in equity in everything. You need to have a male champion who champions for you, because at the end of the day, we all know 80% of boards are still what? They're still men. They're not women. So find somebody with the right networks who becomes your champion, who will put forward your name, who will speak for you. And in the same way, you also have a woman. So you have both at any given time. Don't underestimate the point, because again, we tend to be very pro-feminist and we say, oh no, I'm going to work out, it's only women. And women, we will help you. But unfortunately, we are a smaller minority. So you always have to also look at the majority, and the majority are men. Identify a guy who's a very strong influencer, who has a lot of respect for you, your achievements and everything else, and allow that person also to be your champion. But even as they become your champion, you have to also be clear where you want them to champion for you, because they can't champion for every single thing that comes. That's why, again, I go back to this point about being clear. Where is a value you have and where can you add the value? Because there's no point being champion, because I see a question here around tokenism. The one thing we have to fight as women is being somewhere for tokenism. That is something I find absolutely, I'm very uncomfortable with. I will never, support it. And I think as women, we have to, when we're sitting in a chair, we're sitting squarely and we are leaning in, and we're there because of the value we add, not just because we're a token to add a number. So find that champion who's going to speak to you. Find those 2 champions, 3 champions. And I really insist, even though this is a women's forum, that one of those champions has to be somebody, a male individual who has a lot of influence, who has a lot of networks in those, because we are actually cracking the all boys network, right? So if you have a network, what do? You crack it. That's what hacking is about. That's how you go and find out. So we need to hack this network. And the way you hack it is by finding that champion who supports you. So that's another way of getting out of the cocoon, right?
Thank you, Patricia and Rita. As we go on, there are quite a number of questions, so I'll quickly go through them. But before I do that, I just want to recognize the presence of Rebecca Miano. I saw her come in, and she's a member of Women on Boards Network, and she just got an amazing award the other day, the African Inspirational Business Leadership Award. Let's just give her a round of applause. Karibu sana, Rebecca Miano. We are honored to have you in our midst and that you're part of our membership. So going on, I'll just quickly go through the questions.
Thank you, Faith. Thank you.
There you are, Rebecca. Karibu sana. So I'll go through the questions. Rita and Patricia, the questions are many, but a lot of them are quite similar. So I'll just go through them. Kitam Bogwa is asking, could you kindly share the examples of values board members can add into the board? I am aware of the various committees boards have: finance, audit, technical, and human resource. So that's just, I guess, around the values that board members should have or boards are looking for right now. Second question coming from Maria Muley. How have you managed to maintain your values so that you are not being put in a boat to be used or to be pushed as an agenda? And I think you've touched on to that, but you can just discuss that a bit more. The other question is from Rose Sam. How do we use soft power as women to drive our agenda as ladies, especially in male-dominated boards? A good question there. Elsie Maru is asking, how do you navigate politics, mostly associated with boards, while still delivering professionalism? And a final question here, I think I'll just give you one more. A good question. How can women wade through these highly barbed board positions, especially where the composition of men is 99%? That's from Agnes Mashaka. Rita and Patricia, maybe you can take those questions, and then I'll give you a few more after you answer those.
Okay, Rita, do you want to take the first, and then I'll pick up on the rest?
First one was if I had right, is it what value?
Value, the value you bring.
Values. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, as I indicated in my opening remarks, what organizations looking for, and different organizations are looking for different things at different times. So, for instance, an organization is looking for an IT transformation. That is a skill that they will go out to look for. So they will advertise, or they will come to women on board and say, we are looking to transform our IT, and we need to get this type of skill because it will add value to our organization. And of course, they will go source a competitive process and all that, and they will play. So for me, different companies look for, some are looking for customer intimacy, they are looking for regulatory support. And if they come to women on board, and I believe, as I said, and I was serious, that we have our profile there, like Patricia's profile, that is saying, I am interested in SME transformation. So if a bank is looking for how they can bring in SMEs segment into the bank, then they would go for that type of skill. So that one pager is very, very important also in getting that. So for me, if I got the question right, it's about the value you bring, then it is your skill that you bring to the board. That's what I would say. So different companies look for different things.
So if I build on that, so every single board, for example, has a skill set. So they look at the board members and they look at what is the business they're in. And therefore, because that's a business they're in, they're looking for individuals with expertise in that particular skill set. So every single board, at least the ones I've been in, there's always a skill set profiling of the board members so that you're very clear. You're not bringing in 5, you're in a bank, you've got eight board members. All of them do audit. There's nobody on consumer. There's nobody on digital. There's nobody. So what value are you going to be bringing by having these people? So it's always very clear that each board does this skill set profiling. And therefore, when they are looking for a board member, ideally is because of a skill set they bring. So for example, now at ABSA Bank, there are 2 board positions we're looking for, and it's very clear that the skill set we're looking for. We need somebody with investment banking experience, you know, those type of things. So it is quite clear what it is you tend to look for. So if I go then very quickly into the next point that was asked about, how do you manage to maintain your values so that you're not being put on a board to be used or to push an agenda personally or politically? I think the first thing that I always speak to, because I used to do a lot of work on speaking to brand and building your personal brand and everything else. There are 3 C's that we always talk to a brand: that you are always consistent, that you're always constant, right? So consistent in who you are, constant in what you speak for. And what was the 3rd C? Now I've suddenly gone blank on the 3rd C that I used to speak to. But what do I mean by consistency? Because that's a key thing. values are something you determine and that you stick by. You can't today have the value of saying that, you know, I will not take a bribe, and then you sit somewhere, somebody offers you a perfume, you take it and say, but it's just a perfume. It's not quite a bribe. And you start justifying it and saying, oh, but you know, it was just a gift, you know. So in order not to be used, you have to start building your brand and what you stand for. Because then by the time you're put somewhere, it is very clear that you're not somebody who's going to be pushed around for those personal or political agendas. The second thing is, by the time you're being put on that board, you have to know what you're going to do. You don't just accept a board just to feel good and to say you're a board member. If it is something you cannot add value to, don't be there. Don't go there, because clearly you're actually, you know, literally doing exactly the point that you're making there, going something to be used when you know there's no value you can add. Or alternatively, you could be doing it because you say you want to learn. Then you have to actively make sure that you learn so that you build value onto it. Then there was a point around soft power for women. And I think that's one thing that probably Rita and I can speak to quite a lot. Because, I mean, when you look at us, you know, you know, we love to smile, we like to be happy, we're, you know, we're friendly, we're all those types of, I think soft power is a ton of things. It's a combination of things. The first is, for me, the ability to be heard. And when you're somewhere, irrespective, that when you speak, people actually listen to you. So soft power for me comes in a whole bundle of things. And how do I use my soft power? It comes from the fact that I don't speak just for the sake of speaking. It comes from the fact that, yes, when I'm in a tough situation and perhaps I'm being ignored, I'm a lot more strategic about what I say. I change the tone of the way I speak. By nature, I'm very exuberant and whatever, but when I'm in a situation where I'm like that, I'll actually talk a lot quieter, a lot more deliberately, because then, you know, people then are like, huh? You know, you're shifting the tone of the way you say things. There is the ability to really be prepared, because again, power needs to come with some substance. And that substance for me is your ability to know what you're talking about, be prepared, be able to add value, because those are the things that get noticed. So it's not power from just bullying and speaking and shouting and saying, oh, you haven't, or throwing tantrums or anything. No, it's really around the fact that you have built presence enough that whatever it is you're saying makes sense. So the one thing I've learned is, if a point for me does not need to be said, has already been said, I will not say it again just so that I can say I've been heard. I'd rather shut up, because I'd rather have people remember something unique I've said than them remember that, okay, she's the one who regurgitates everything everybody says, or just says something for the sake of saying it. Finally, the one point that I want to build on, and I'll let now Rita build on some of these others, was the question which I was trying to understand around highly barbed, which I didn't quite understand. How do you navigate politics? I've done that. How do you resolve conflict of interest? Is that one we raise now, or do I talk to that a little later? Conflict of interest with employment is always very, very clear. By the time you're applying for a board position, it is always best to get clearance from your employer to tell them, I'm expressing this interest. What do you feel? Is it the right thing? And because also the board is going to ask when you're employed, do you really have the time to do this? And those are some of the things you always need to get clearance from. And also when you're on some boards, by the way, the chairman has a right to know if you're adding other boards. Yeah, because again, you have a Oh, there's somebody who needs to go on Jacinta, you need to go on mute. So there's a conflict of interest register, which we always have to feel, and that what that conflict of interest register, it speaks to all the different things you're doing, so that again they're clear that you have adequate time to support whatever it is you're in. So those are the ones I'll contribute to. Over to you, Rita.
Yeah, maybe I may add on here, because I serve in a government board, Kenya Roads Board, as the chair of the board. And of course, you're appointed by the president, but you work with the minister. And there are many interests, political interests, work interests, and all that. So you need to develop skill around being politically savvy, to be able to understand the environment in which you're operating, and to have clarity what Patricia was saying. Let people know who you are in very, very clear terms, what you stand for, and not to waver from there. Because you ask yourself, whatever I'm doing in hiding, if it was to be in the newspaper tomorrow, how would I feel? If the feeling is bad, then you're gonna refrain from it. But in these roles, especially in government positions, understanding the politics and the dynamics of what is happening in the institution is very, very important for you to effectively discharge your responsibility. So we need to, at that level, you need to develop those skills to check, counter check, understand, get the vibe. And it's all about that communication, that coordination, so that at the end of the day, you do what your act says. These pieces of documents, the acts and all that, they give an individual quite a bit of safeguard to really act in the clean and proper. So if there's any idea of not really being prim and proper, there's an act that really protects you. So there's always need to go back to reference these pieces of documentation to protect you from doing what is wrong. But so long as, and it's very interesting what Patricia says, those soft skills, they come in handy, because probably you're happy, you are all this, and they think, maybe. Then they really find the real you, a serious professional. You bring substance, and you can catch them off guard. They that they're just women. They are not harmful. Of course, we are not harmful, but we want to do what is right. So understanding the politics of things, especially in state corporation, even in private organizations, we cannot run away from the politics of organizations as well. But it's to develop those skills, and they come with learning. Again, sponsor, you can go back. Sometimes you are caught up in a situation that you I ain't sure what is happening here. I call Patricia, hey Pat, what's up? I'm in this situation. What do you think? And many times we chit-chat. So who is that bouncing individual you trust that can help you navigate through because of the experience and all that? So just wanted to throw in a little bit of idea in what we're discussing.
And then the next thing is also, which nobody has asked, but I'm going to build because Rita was talking about the way we chit-chat. The other thing as women is we have to fundamentally believe in supporting ourselves. And I know Rita and I have been in a situation where we sat down and we're like, okay, there are all these men and they were ganging up against one, not ganging up. I mean, it was a conversation around your fellow female board member. And the easier thing is to go with the flow and say, okay, let's not play women. This must be a fundamental thing. But you ask yourself the question, we all need to help each other. We don't know how men support each other. I am a golfer. Let me tell you, I play golf with men. Those men have each other's backs. You just have to sit and listen to some of the conversations they have. You realize they always have each other's backs. So as women, we also have to have each other's backs. So if Rita and I are sitting in the same situation and we figure there's a fellow colleague of us who might be, our first instinct is to rally around and say, okay, we are the ones who are going to guide and support and help you and navigate and show you are together, as opposed to throwing you under the bus and saying, ay, huyo, shauri yake. She's dug herself into that hole. You know, so those are some of the other things which are very fundamental, because I see a question here that says, has the old boys club transitioned to same women club? In a way, yes, unfortunately, but guess what? The boys club started that way. Let us get a women's club and grow it so big that it's no longer a club. It's actually the way things are. It is the Women on Boards network where you have a profile. The other day, I was looking for a board member for something and I asked Catherine. I told Catherine, very, very quickly, I'm being asked for names, give me some names. She told me, how quickly? I told her, very, very quickly. Do you know, in the space of 10 minutes, Catherine sent me a list of, my goodness, Catherine, how many were those names? I mean, now at least I have them. 42.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And I'm like, where have all these women been? So I didn't even know. So I started sifting through and say, okay, let me throw this one. That one is familiar. Let me throw that one. That looks familiar. But the one thing that came out, even as she shared it, is I needed to know who these women are. So remember the point I said about building your brand? I remember the third C. The first is clarity. What do you stand for? What value do you add? What is it you want to bring? When you write your profile, what is your area of expertise? What is the thing that you stand for? So when they're looking for that, they know you're the go-to person. The next thing is the constancy. Constancy is being aware, being visible, people knowing you're available, making sure that they know you are there. I mean, you know, when you start saying the same women's club, it's because it's the same women we see. We're not going to look under a rock to look for you. Yeah, so you have to be constant somewhere for us, for this club to be able to know you exist. And then the third thing, of course, is the consistency. If today you're here, tomorrow you're there. So the question becomes, when the board is looking for a skill set, they don't know which one you're going to fit. And by the way, you can multitask, you can be an expert in a number of things, but there has to be an area that you own. Okay, so that again is to just help build on that particular point. Remember those 3 C's: clarity, constancy, and consistency.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Patricia and Rita. Wow, I'm just seated here trying to write notes and manage the questions as well. I'm learning so much, and I know everybody else is. Just to remind guys, I like what Rita said, Patricia said in terms of example, how when you asked for a certain number of, like people to join a board and you got 42, those are some of the benefits that you get when you join Women on Boards Network. So after this, if you feel it is time to join and be a member, please reach out to us even after this, and we'll show you how to be a member. And those are not the only benefits. We have board talks, we have mentorship, and you could be leading an organization or belong to an organization and you'd like to support what we do as Women on Boards Network, and so you can be a sponsor as well. So please reach out to us and we'll let you know how to start that journey towards sitting on a board. I'd just also like to mention to a few people who've reached me saying that they need to leave, we have such a big, awesome announcement at the end of this event. It's actually going to be a ceremony. Imagine that, a ceremony right here virtually on our event. So you don't want to miss that. We'll be finishing around 6:30 or thereabout. So please stay with us if you can till that point. So Rita and Patricia, I'll just ask a few more questions. Thank you for going through some of the questions so I don't have to ask them. There's a good one here. Michelle Nyawera is asking, please share with us an example of a time you faced an ethical dilemma while serving in a board and how you navigated that. So that's about the ethical issues. And there's someone here asking, after getting a place on the table on the board, how do you navigate politics in a male-dominated field? I know you've handled that. I find all board members come with interest. That's from Christine Othiambo. Someone else is asking, how do you resolve the conflict of interest if in employment in terms of time? I think you've handled that. And there's so maybe you can touch on it, but that's handled. I suppose the value on being in a board is the ability to influence policies. However, how do you become smart at working around bureaucracies so that your value is felt? That's from Susan Aguata. And someone else here is asking, this is to Patricia, what is your greatest impact that you are proud of, that you have brought into a board you have sat in? And I think that would be a fantastic question for Rita to answer as well, just in terms of your highlights and what you're proud of in sitting on boards. And there's a question here, how does a woman leader navigate the turbulent waters of a board member that is not offering the support necessary to fulfill the decision of the institution? And that's from Judith Gadua. And there's a question here, how can women wade through this? Sorry, we answered that, forgive me for that. There's someone here saying, very inspiring stories from two great women. Patricia was my first boss at Unilever when I was fresh from school, and I admired her greatly and looked up to her. She truly inspired me and always has. That's from Winnie Maru. I think I've gone through all the questions, so I'll hand over back to you. I hope I didn't go through them too fast and you've gotten the keywords to be able to respond.
Rita, go.
Rita?
It was so fast.
I'm so sorry.
I think I'm reading them
Let
now.
me talk about impact.
Okay, okay.
I know you asked Patricia, but I want to share impact.
Yes.
And it takes time. And when you are called to serve in the public, in government institutions, it takes time to realize things. So you kind of get a bit frustrated. So I served in the board of Kenya Roads Board for 6 years. And in those 6 years, as a board, because Kenya Roads Board disburses funds to road agencies, Kenha, Kura, Kera, that build or maintain roads in urban area, national network. And we kept being very, very frustrated that we are not connecting with the road agencies. Someone is chit-chatting. Sorry, we were not connecting with the road agencies, and yet they're the ones that implement our strategy. So we kept on trying to really connect, because we knew if we connected with them, then the silos will be eliminated, will be more effective, the money will be better utilized for roads. So I kept on pushing. I kept on going to calling CS Mashari, what's happening? You know, what is happening here? And that made me earn the board position. Okay, now you come and be the board member so that you can drive that. Someone else will think they were frustrating the individual by keep on texting, what's happening? Why is this not happening? You know, they ignore the text message. After the next 3 months, you text again. Then the next meeting, I'm in church and he calls me and I say, I'll call you after service. After service, I call him and he tells me, by the way, you've been pushing me for this networking with the road agencies and all that. You are just a member. Come be the chair and drive that agenda. So there I was. I earned my position as the chair of the board. Great news. But now what is even more interesting, it is true that then as the chair of the board, using all the skills available to us and experience in boards, I've been able to now form the caucus group of all road agencies. And I have been given that role to chair that caucus group. So you can see how that will impact what I have been fighting for, you know, efficiency. Let's talk together. Let's create some synergies and let's drive the value for money, roadworks and all that. And I'm very, very happy about that. Again, don't sit, as Patricia said at the beginning, put yourself out. If you see something is not going right, talk about it. You know, no one will blame you for trying to improve a system, trying to improve process. You might be bugging them, but they will respect you because what you're trying to do is something that will add value. Over to you, Patricia.
I think you've covered that one, so I can move on to one of the others about the impact, because I think our impact is very different. Because Rita's impact example there is a really tangible impact, which can be seen, bringing all those together and everything else. I think when I reflect on some of my impact, I think there's the softer impact areas. I mean, I've been on a board where I'm the only female member. So for me, part of the impact was bringing the emotional intelligence aspects, because as you know, when you have just a group of men and that's the way they do things, their perspective of the way they view things is very, very different. So for example, where they sit down and the conversation is in one particular instance where they were just looking at a reorganization, and therefore this is the way we're going to do it. And I think my impact was saying, hold on, we really need to do this. Let us understand. And when we say we're going to look at the people who don't, let's understand who didn't perform. What is the reason? What's the context? Is there a different way we can do it? And in particular, for me, this has happened quite a few times, especially in these COVID times, where the biggest support for me has been around, do not cut people's salary. You're better off having, or getting rid of people. You're better off having a few people, having people work less and they earn, than saying we're going to get rid of 30%. So all those empathetical conversations, I think, are some of the impacts that I tend to bring. The second thing is things that people don't even tangibly see. And I think I'm always proud when I remember one particular board that I still sit on, and I sit down and I say, oh my gosh, one particular time I'm not able to attend a meeting, and people are like, you're not coming. Oh my God, we're not coming for the meeting then, because we have them different capitals. And I'm like, what do you mean you're not coming? Because, oh my gosh, it's going to be, how is it going to be without you being around? And these are things that start to show that perhaps there's a value that you add when you come in, that you create some bonding, some gelling, some connection. And, I tell people like to be around pleasant people. Nobody chooses to be around somebody who's difficult and bitter and whatever else. So again, it's not being a woman, it's just being a human being. Try always and be somebody who people want to be around, and that creates a lots of impact, because as a board, you're all individuals coming from different places, and you work better if you get on a lot better. So I want to answer a question here that I saw, which really fascinates me. And that is, it is said that a majority of the decisions made by the board are made outside the boardroom. Please shed some light on the lobbying that happens outside of the boardroom. This is a really fun one, because, and I think for me, where I've experienced it the most, I'm also on the board of a country club. And that's actually the first time I understood what country club style management is, because I'd be coming to the meeting and there's a conversation going on, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Who did what? When did you speak to who? Where? Because these men sat at a bar and they decided they were told this by the other men. You didn't know. They all had the conversation. Then in the meeting, there's a resolution that's being had, and you're like, hold on, guys. I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. And I think the biggest advice that I'd like to share, how do you deal by these lobbying things, is by being bold enough. Remember, you're in that seat as a substantive position, not a token. Don't ever be shy and say, I don't want to rock the boat. It looks like they've all agreed. Oh my goodness, it looks like it's all been a discussion. How am I the one who's going to change it? You're better off stopping it then and there and calling them and saying, okay, I want to understand. See, take me through what happened. What is the context? How was it discussed? And it's wonderful to see people feeling a bit embarrassed and saying, oh, no, it's just that they came and the person called me and whatever. And then, okay, we weren't able and we needed to. I said, it doesn't matter. Yeah. If we're all here as equal parties, we need to have the same amount of information and the same about discussion. So I'm not going to allow this to pass until I am clear and I've been involved in the same conversation and context you guys had when you first had this, because I was not able to stay at the bar as late as you did in order to listen to what the conversation was. So I think there's a degree of boldness that you need to have, but a boldness without being, just manga. You don't want to be labeled that manga, pig-headed. No, but from a firmness and from a rational, factual perspective, help me understand where that came from. I'm not happy. Learn to use these wonderful English words. Like, I'm not happy at the moment, to endorse that. Please help me understand. I really need some more context around this. Look, I'll be willing to support this, but until I understand, those kind of things, rather than, no, this is nonsense. don't go that route. Yeah, learn to get all these engagement words, which somebody can see is very firm and very clearly saying stop, but also allows them to reflect and think, here, let's give the context onto this one. And I think, Rita, I'd like you to add on to this particular one.
Oh, Patricia, you have covered it fully. No need to add. Let's get a new set of questions.
Okay.
Thank you for that, ladies.
It really does happen. It really does happen. And I have been caught into it. And in that instance, personally, I supported the decision because it was the right decision. So sometimes it can be a networking, but you are concerned because it does not talk to your values. But sometimes it could be that this is the right decision to be made, but there is interest to go in a particular way. So you have to weigh and speak to your values, what you stand for, what is right for the institution and all that, and then make a decision on the topic at hand.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Patricia. We are almost coming to a close, but there's so many questions and everyone is like, please, Faith, read my question. So I'll just quickly go through them and you'll give them your best shot. But before I do that, I'd also just like to mention, I think it's important for us to mention the men in the room. So we have a few gentlemen who are joining us. So Karibu Sana, I know so many times you're saying ladies and all that, and like, gosh, we are here. So Karibu Sana, gentlemen. And on Women on Boards, we actually practice diversity as well. So we have 2 male board members, Calvin and Reverend Jenga, who we also call Boy Child. We also have mentors who are male. So in case you're looking for that influencer or the champion, as we've learned today, we have that here on Women on Boards Network. Other members, of course, is Miss Nkirote Njiru. We have Judy Sidi. We have Rose Lumumba and Catherine Musakali, of course. So just in case you're wondering who is behind that, those are the people behind that. I've seen the link for our website being put up there on the chat, so you can click on it and just get more details. I'll just quickly delve into the questions. There are quite a number of questions on the ethical aspects and how you handle that. So instead of maybe reading full questions, I'll give you sort of the topic. So please handle that as you answer the questions. There's someone who's asked something interesting here, and I think it's important to handle because we've had various discussions on this kind of thing as women on boards, where you want to step down or turn down an appointment. Sadly, because we are talking about getting onto them, but someone is asking, you are appointed to a parastatal that has corruption issues hanging over its head. How do you turn down the appointment, having been gazetted by the president? And maybe I add, should you turn it down? Maybe we shouldn't, so I'd like for you to answer that. There's a good one here. I like this one. How do you handle failure? And this person wants to know from you, how have you handled failure? Have you failed? How have you handled failure? And what support systems do you have in place? So that's about failure. There are a lot of questions on communication and confidence. Sorry? Oh, sorry. I guess it's somebody else.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of questions on challenges to do with communication, how to communicate your strengths, how to network as well. So maybe you can give tips on networking. The person who asked about networking, so many people were like, yes, that's a problem for all of us. So maybe talk about that as well so that people can learn on how to network. There's someone who's asked about your journey getting into your first board. I know you touched on that, but if there is time, maybe you can handle that a bit more. And there's someone else who's asking here. This is an interesting one, Patricia, and I'll say for Rita as well. One of your most challenging moments in a board. I know we spoke about the highlights, so maybe we can discuss the lowlights as well. I think in summary, I've covered all the questions, the ethical aspects. There's also aspects of communication, how to communicate, how to network as well. And finally, aspects of what has been your most challenging moment on the board. Yeah, over to you.
Let me talk about the challenging very quickly, because it's something that bothered me for a very, very long time. I did say I was on 2 government boards. And I think for me, those were the one in particular, not the other, was in particular very, very challenging, because here we are with a mission. I was very clear what needed to be done and how we needed to do it. But it was full of a group of people who were there because they felt that, you know, they were there for a jolly. They knew they were coming to collect their fees. And in fact, there was one particular board member who never came on time, would come in the last like half hour, be just there in time to sign for his allowance and leave. Never contributed, never did. I mean, I was always absolutely shocked by that. But I think for me, my lowest moment was because I was not able to take the board fees because I was employed by an organization. And one of the things was I could not take the, you know, I was not, you know, the rules that we have is you're not allowed to accept board fees. And so I was giving my board fees to a charity. And that was the agreement we had. I'm not going to take it, and I was going to give it to this particular charity, and it had been agreed that is the way it would be done. And I remember a very prominent person on the board once, and every board meeting I'd say, why have you brought my board fees? We've always agreed it's going to be collected, and we're going to find a way for it to be sent to the charity of choice that I had. And this particular board member took the envelope happily and said, since you don't need this, I will take it. Put it inside his coat pocket and walked away and signed. Now, how do you deal with that? I mean, how do you begin to deal with that? Until today, I mean, the individual is somebody I really look at and I'm like, listen, you know, it is incredible. So those are some of the things that you tend to see. And I did have a conversation a lot later, but the person was influential. And I found out even when we'd agreed the fees were going, they weren't, you'd collect it. So there are particular things like that that I dealt with. And eventually I had to report and have a conversation around it. And it was a very, very difficult position for me, as you can imagine. So that for me was the lowest time. I just couldn't believe people could behave like that. You know, there are just some things which are really, really shocking, but I was glad that I was able to resolve it. And the money did come back somewhat, and it did go to the charity that I had after a long, long while, but it did. So that I want to share, because again, it's that point around being bold and sitting down and saying, if something is not right, it's not right. Speak up to it. Yeah. I don't know if there's any other one I want to speak to here. I don't know, Rita? Is there one that you want to speak to?
I guess we are running out of time. There was a bit of ethical behavior. Should you turn down a parastatal appointment job? I tend not to want to give up if I've been appointed to a position and the institution is named as being corrupt. You might have to dig a little bit, call your networks and find out some ideas around if they know the institution, because sometimes you find it in the newspaper and all this stuff, get to know first a little bit about the institutions, make a call, whether you want to join or not. And sometimes we should not fear too much to go into institutions that have been labeled corrupt, because what we take in them then is to help those institutions to improve the process, to see people with integrity mingling in the system. We need to bring that in so that you can ruffle the feather, like Patricia said about this guy. If there was no bold individual who said, no, my allowance needs to go to this institution, then that organization will just continue behaving the way they behave. But maybe that in itself had an impact in terms of changing the individual and also changing the institution to practice integrity in the way they deal as a board or as an organization. So sometimes to refuse completely, I think it's not good, but again, it depends with individuals. Some you have to refuse because they could. There's one that I had to resign. I completely resigned. I served for 2 years. I tried to improve the system. I tried to improve the process. I was very, very vocal. And I felt like what they were doing, if ended up in the newspaper, would tarnish my reputation that Rita is really serving in that board. I had to resign. I had to call it quit. So you need to, if you are in and you see bad practice, you quit, because at any point you can actually decide to quit. So it's an individual decision, but it's better to quit rather than to tarnish your reputation. It takes a very, very long time to build our individual reputation and our individual brands. We really do not want them to be tarnished, because then it messes your opportunities to serve in other institutions. So you need to make the call. Patricia, we have also been asked to talk about communication. You are the communication expert.
I think communication, it depends. Are you communicating about yourself or are you communicating internally? I think if there's one thing that I advise anybody, if you want to be on a board, is learn to speak clearly, learn to be deliberate, learn to just say what needs to be said and shut up. What are the keep it short and sweet, all those things. So if you're struggling with the way you communicate, the fact that perhaps you're never heard, take some time to find a coach who can help you, listen to you, and help build your communication style and the way you speak. But some of the key things that I've learned, and even with my team members who I work with, the first thing I always tell people is always, learn to look people in the eye when you speak to them. The fastest way to be known as being shifty and inconsistent or dodgy is if your eyes are here, there, and you're never able to look somebody. Learn to have the confidence, not to stare somebody down, but to have the confidence to look into somebody's eyes as you speak to them. Learn to only speak as you think, plan what it is you're saying, say it, and shut up. There is no point repeating it because you figure you need to say it differently. Maybe it hasn't been heard. No, don't second guess yourself. Say it, keep quiet. Learn things like how to moderate your tone so that, again, when you're speaking, people then listen to you, because you all know when you listen to something, it becomes white noise if you speak in the same tone all the time. So learn things like, how do I moderate my tone? How do I speak quieter? How do I become more deliberate? How do I become more animated? How do I do all those things? But finally, the most important thing, as I said, if you're new and young into something, study the documents and be clear the thing that you're going to speak to, because you have studied it, you've understood it, and you believe in it. Don't come into somewhere and be an empty vessel and just speak to everything, because again, you lose the confidence and the respect, the general confidence of the others. It is better to speak once, make sense, and make a point that is valuable and that is heard, than to feel that, oh, the only way I can show I'm present is at every single thing you have something to say. That actually removes a lot of points from your communication. I think that's all I have to say.
And maybe to add on what Patricia has said, don't overblame yourself. There are many situations where you go, oops, did I really communicate properly? You know, we all, I wanted to articulate this point, but it didn't come out the way I wanted it to come out. The fact that you are aware of that in itself is progress towards learning. We do it all the time. I wanted this point didn't come out the way I wanted. But some boards are really great. A colleague of yours in the board would, many times I've had it, I think what Rita is trying to say is that I didn't really articulate it properly, but they're helping me to articulate it because it was a good point, but it didn't come out the way it should. They jump in and help, and it's a cue to you to continuously learn and improve in your communication. So I think it's a learning process. Don't blame yourself. I don't communicate. You communicate, but you want to communicate more effective so that your point can go across. So it's a learning process. So don't use it not to join boards that you're not great at communicating. The other thing that Patricia, they wanted us to talk about is the whole issue of networking. So I think we need to give a few pointers here around networking. This particular occasion is a networking opportunity for me and Patricia. We had a conversation. We were looking for board members, and we were wondering, why are we being recycled? There are no other board individuals there that we can recommend. We called Catherine. Catherine said, of course, it's happening. I am recommending. And then how can we increase this conversation so that women can network more? Catherine gave us work. And here we are today. We said, okay, let's jump in. This is a networking opportunity. As I said, today, right now, there are very, very many influencers in this call. HR professionals, company secretaries, those are part of our networks. We need to know them because they're the ones who go out looking for board position. How many of those do you know? Belonging on women on board is a powerful networking opportunity. You are here today because you belong to this institution. Other institutions in your area of expertise, whether it's Law Society of Kenya, whether it is KEPSA, whether it is ISPAC, how are you playing in those institutions? How are you playing at a senior level? Governing council, how are you contributing to those institutions? Because it's through your contribution that your leadership capability can be amplified. And when there's an opportunity for this institution to nominate, then they will nominate you to serve in a particular board, whether it's private or government. So we have to give the hours to be deliberate, to connect to influencers. What Patricia talked about and what I mentioned, that I wanted to connect with a particular individual. I was very, very deliberate. I give a small story. I am advisor to James Jordan Foundation, and the mother of Michael Jordan comes to Kenya after every 6 months. One thing she does, she is very good at networking. It's not a hit and run situation. It is a consistent connection to that individual. If not for nothing, a phone call. Hi, how are you? I'm in town. How are you doing? So that you can be top of mind. If there's an opportunity to serve, then they know it is you. Every day I meet a guy when I'm jogging. I meet him every day. 6:30 in the morning, I meet him. If I don't see him, I wonder, what happened to that guy? I don't know him. I've never talked to him. But as I'm running, he's going to work. He's consistently going to work at that hour. So we need to be consistent in our networking activities, connecting with that individual so that they can continue. You remember, they are networking with many people also. So you can be top of mind. If there's an opportunity, then they know we are looking for a lawyer. Catherine is a fantastic lawyer. I was talking to Catherine yesterday. Many times we have been asked to nominate, then after 6 months, oh my goodness, I should have remembered so and so. That's because we are not regularly making contact with our champions and the people who can support us. Patricia and I have been able to use corporate resources to be profiled and to be networked. That's why we enjoy, the positions we enjoy, because resources were deployed on us. It's not the same for everybody. How can you then elevate yourself if you're not in that position where the company also helps in promoting you? Writing articles, LinkedIn profile. We heard about Patricia's profile. It is powerful. How can you bring that power of you through your profile, your picture? I remember when I was being put into leadership position, the one guy said, "Hey man, you look good, but your picture profile on PeopleSoft sucks. You don't look good. In the picture, you look like you had your face painted." All these things are important to profile us and to position us. So are we writing articles? Are we serving? Are we serving in critical positions? Are we connecting with our champions regularly? Are we offering ourselves to speak? Now it's very easy to speak. Here we are speaking. Please, don't stay in that cocoon, I wish. Come up, speak. Seek for an opportunity to speak. You don't know who is in the audience, who might see value, or they're looking for people of your personality, of your character, to help them drive a certain agenda in a board. So there is plenty of that we need to leverage on to continue to network.
Great. I can't add anything more to that, but I look at the time and I realize.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you, Rita. I just love how you're sharing right from your heart. It's quite a blessing, to be honest. And because of time, I'll just request us to quickly get into our ceremony, because we committed to do it at 6:30. And then after that, you can give your closing remarks, because I know there's a question about failure. And someone is saying they'll be keen to hear what you have to say about that. How do you handle failure, and what is your support system? So maybe that could be your closing remarks, or any other thing that you feel you'd want to say at the end. But for now, I'd just like to invite Reverend Geoffrey Njenga. You might want to change the sound on your device, because a gentleman's voice is about to check in, but he'll come in and handle the ceremony that we promised you to have at this point. Reverend Njenga, are you there? Reverend? Let me just confirm if he's still here.
He's on mute. Reverend,
Okay.
please unmute.
I forgot to unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
And some of you can possibly see me.
Yes.
I want to thank Rita and Patricia very much for this excellent time together. The top of the invitation read, "A drink with Rita and Patricia." Now, the whole of this evening, I haven't seen the drink. Wait a minute, Patricia. I can see someone who is not telling me the truth. But we are grateful. This is excellent time, awesome time. How women can access the board and how to strengthen their grip on the board. I think you've done very, very well. Rita and Patricia, you've done very well. Someone has said you've shared from your heart, and I am confirming that. And why is that so? I think it's because you've been there. You've done it. And you are champions for many, and we are looking up to you. You've seen it all, and therefore you have been invaluable insight. You've reminded the women generally to be bold, to be seen. I think it's Patricia who said, "We cannot get you, we cannot come looking for you under the rocks." I like that. I think that will go with me. Not to accept tokenism. But then you also did challenge the ladies especially, and I think this challenge is to all that we bring value to the board. You bring tangible things. Be clear-minded. Be fearless. but be courteous. I really like that. But ethical issues, you've got to be ethical, and then networking. Those are some of the few things I picked as I listened to you. And I think, to me, the greatest thing to remember is balanced representation, because we are not full if one gender is left out. We are not complete if one gender is left out. So I think we all need to join together and build that which will bring honor and glory, and that which will bring a lot of success in our country. Now, this is the moment you've been waiting for Rita and Patricia. The board of Women on Board Network is pleased to crown Rita Kavashe and Patricia Idao as their brand ambassadors, because they hold at heart and are committed to gender diversity. I don't know whether you see what is on your head. You've been crowned, Patricia. You've been crowned, Rita. Can you see it?
Yes.
The board would also request Patricia and Rita to be special advisors to Women on Board Network in their projects. Please say you accept that.
We accept.
We accept that.
Good. Now, how do we clap for these ladies? Who knows how to do that virtually?
I can give a suggestion.
Sorry?
This is Bahati Morara.
Yes.
I'm a board member of Women on Boards Network.
Yes.
Rita and Patricia have been my greatest mentors.
Right.
I think the way we can do it, if you can just go to the function where we raise our hands, and just all of us raise our hands to them, just appreciate them.
Thank
So,
you.
did we get to hear that? I am raising mine to them, and I'm just about to say a prayer.
So can we raise our hands to Rita and Patricia? Let's go to the raise hand function. The raise hand function is under participants. So just raising hands to appreciate Rita and Patricia for their very beautiful work today.
Okay. Are you all there?
Yes.
Great. And now I will pray for Patricia and Rita. Our Father and our God, we want to thank you for these two great ladies and the work that they are doing, impacting people, impacting boards in this country, changing lives. How we thank you for the journey that you've taken them through, and that this far you brought them. We want to thank you, especially as they focus on encouraging ladies in particular to have better representation on the boards. Because indeed, if one gender is left out, we are incomplete. And I therefore pray for their work. I pray that you will bless them and their families, and that their labor will not be in vain, that they will continue to impact ladies especially, and men also, so that we may have better representation. In the name of God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. And all God's people said,
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
very much. Congratulations to you, Patricia. Congratulations to you, Rita. Well done.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you, ladies, for raising your hands. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bahati, as well. Thank you, Reverend Jenga, for taking us through that. That was quite awesome. And thank you for praying for them as well. Patricia and Rita, congratulations. I know there's the whole ceremony and the pomp. I know there's the shouts and the claps, but we want you to give your parting shot before we get into our vote of thanks. So Rita and Patricia.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Go, Rita,
Go on,
sorry.
Patricia.
Sorry.
Okay. Of course, thank you very much, all of you. It's been a pleasure for us to participate in this discussion. Issues women, issues development, issues improving our country are core to us. I always say when you hit 50 plus, then you start to wonder what value are you adding, and you want to add more value to where it counts so that we can leave this world a better place. And women have a very important role to play. Before COVID, many researches and discussions were on women that run institutions. Those institutions deliver a better bottom line. Fortune 500 companies and all that, great stories. So that was in the area of business. And true, it can be said it's been researched. We go to COVID and we are amazed by the countries that are led by women and how they have been able to manage this pandemic. I believe it is clear to each and every one of us, this discussion this evening, that we have a big role to play. If we had doubts, those doubts have been removed because we can see those examples. We need to use our talent. We need to use our gifts as women. We need to use our gift of nurturing to nurture nations, to nurture leaders, and to nurture ourselves through leaning and supporting each other to grow. So I want to thank you, Catherine, and Women on Board Network, Patricia, my good friend, and everybody in this discussion for plugging in. You are here because you care. You are here because you want to lead, and you are here because you want to make a difference. So let's work together to make that difference, however humble it might be. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rita. You've said a lot of things you have to say, but my parting shots is going to be in the 3 things that I want you to remember. The first thing I talked about, the 3 C's. Really, the first one, clarity. Be clear who you are, what you stand for, what value you add, what value you can give and you can bring. Always be very clear what you stand for as well, in terms of what are your values, your beliefs, etc. So the first C, clarity. Once that clarity is there, be consistent in it. Yes, don't one day be this and then tomorrow the other. Always be consistent, because it's that consistency that demonstrates commitment, that demonstrates that, you know, you're a person who can be respected for what you are and what you do. People have to always remember that from a consistency, if I want something done, the person I know who can only do it is X. Have that consistency. And of course, the last thing, which is a constancy, interesting word, and that is really around your visibility, around how you communicate, around how you do the things that Rita is saying, because not everybody is going to be a CEO or managing director of a company or in an organization that's going to allow them to be profiled. I mean, some of us were very lucky. We're in organizations where we're in roles where we are constantly being thrown out there in the newspaper to be here, there, and whatever, whether you wanted it or you don't. Now, at the time you might complain, but eventually you have to make everything work for you. And that drove the constancy for us. So find ways to write, to speak, to volunteer for webinars, to just be out there so that we can know who you are. So my first lesson, the 3 C's around those points. My next C is around finding the champion. Remember, the champion cannot just be a woman. A champion has to also find an influential gentleman, influential woman who is going to speak for you, who's going to be your ambassador, who's going to be remember your name, because they happen to sit in forums where they are asked for names and your name is one they can throw in there. Find those champions. And not many, because again, you're all over the place. 2, 3, enough. And then finally, my last point is learn to network. Learn to find your most comfortable way to network. Many people are comfortable in some areas and they're not comfortable in others. Find your most comfortable way to network and drive that. You don't need to be a man to be a board member, nor do you just have to be a woman so that you're there as a token. Just be you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Rita. Thank you very much, Patricia. It's been extremely insightful and informative, so rich. In no event have we held for Women on Boards Network where we've had such a big number. At the highest point, I think we had 250 people. Right now, the participants are at 207. It just also shows the kind of brand the two of you have out there and what you've been able to draw. And we have seen it, we have confirmed it, we have put a good stamp on it as well. So thank you very much. And again, congratulations on being our ambassadors as well. As we close, and we request for you to stay with us till we close, because we'll be giving you a fantastic brief moment to network where we allow you to see each other's faces and say hi to everyone, maybe exchange your contact on your private chat at the end of this event. You know, it's your chance to virtually network. So please stay with us at the end and we'll do the picture as well at the end. But for now, I'd like to invite Ms. Nkirote to just come in and just give us her vote of thanks and also share with us the upcoming events. So karibu sana, and thank you everyone for listening and being attentive to this point. Nkirote, over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Faith, for moderating that session so excellently. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, Patricia. We are so blessed that first and foremost you accepted the crowns and just for accepting to be the ambassadors of the Women on Boards Network, which you have already been doing, but more so today, just going about it more intentionally from today onwards. As Women on Boards Network, our chair, Catherine, the board members, those who are present, Reverend Jenga is here, Faith is here, Judy Sidi is here, and the other board members who may not be present this evening. We have Rose Lumumba, we have Calvin Nyachoti. We just really appreciate what you have done for us this evening. First and foremost, to the ladies and gentlemen who have been on this forum, by sharing your experiences and your counsel so powerfully, what you have reminded us is what we are capable of, what we deserve to go out and do, and the ways in which we can add impact in our service. And so thank you for reminding us that, because I know that each and every person who logged on this evening has it, but sometimes we play small. We take our lights and put them under the bushel and hope that somebody will go looking for you, as Patricia said, under that bushel. We need to step up and to remember what we are capable of. And so thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for being here this evening, for making the time to be here to have this coffee chat or have this drink with Patricia and Rita. And we look forward to presenting more opportunities for networking as we have always done. Aside from the networking, one of the purposes or the intents we have for this network is also to continue ensuring that there is a pipeline of board-ready women. I saw a number of questions there. How can Women on Boards Network support us? Ensure that there are new women coming onto boards. One of those is, of course, ensuring that the network continues to thrive. We want you to feel at home here, become a member. Remember also that in thriving in this network, we are also building that pipeline from an earlier and earlier age. So we now have the junior membership. They are young ladies and gentlemen also from the age of 12 who we are engaging at least on a monthly basis to mentor them and to ensure that they have programs that build their confidence and ability from a young age to understand, even as the example we had from Patricia, that it's not only about those pictures you see in the newspaper. You need to start preparing early and be ready to step up at the right time. And so please encourage the young people in your household to get in touch with us and join the junior membership, as we do have activities, webinars for them, and we will continue ensuring that they are growing and being nurtured into this world of good governance. Speaking about good governance, we also are keen on ensuring that all the women on the network, and even gentlemen now, go through appropriate corporate governance training. It's important that as you step into board leadership, you are not only an expert in the area of your experience or in leadership, but that you understand that in the corporate space or in the boardroom, corporate governance is what will sustain you in your board membership. And so we have corporate governance training. We have now been holding it online. Our next session is on the 5th to the 9th of October, 2020. If you haven't signed up, if you haven't attended before, please do make sure that you do attend. Hannah is already putting up the flyer, and you can see that, that it is one of those sessions where you will also learn a lot and network. We also have the opportunity to support you in profiling yourself on the board, personal positioning, so that, as Rita and Patricia both mentioned, it is critical that your personal brand stands out. And we have TP, who is an expert in this field. He formerly worked with Corn Ferry from Malaysia. He is excellent at this. And so he has been running workshops. He's done so twice with us. And there is another one that is going to be running on the 20th to the 23rd of October. If you haven't yet done it, please sign up and please attend. I'm sure it will be worth your while. We're also talking about our conference for this year, and when we have the details, we'll be sure to share them with you. But look out for these webinars and come. As we talked about, we want to shatter the old boys network, but more so, it's not just shattering for the sake of it. It is actually building the girls going somewhere network. I mean, that's what we really need to do. We need to replace it with something positive, a movement that will support diversity on the boards that we serve on and those we intend to serve on. So we do welcome you to be part of the membership of the Women on Boards Network, to serve with us when we do call out for people to serve on the various committees of the board, to also come and speak. If you know of somebody who is interested also to come and speak, please do share with us. There is a committee dedicated to that, and they look into it. More than anything, we really appreciate the fact that you were able to stay on until this time. We've gone well over time, but there are still so many questions. We do commit to sharing these questions with Rita and Patricia. If there's any they can even answer for us offline, we will be able to share with you the responses. But right now, I just want to wish you God bless. Have a lovely weekend ahead. Thank you for being with us. And now hand over, I think it's back to Faith or to Hannah for a photo moment, because we want to see you all. We want to celebrate with Patricia and Rita, and really appreciate the company that you have kept with us over this evening. So thank you once again, and God bless you.
And Kirote, before we hand over to Faith, just to mention that another program that we have is the Global Women on Boards program, which we run with lead women in Malaysia. So we have modules running from here in Kenya. We have modules running from out of Malaysia. And we have mentors who are spread out throughout the globe. We have mentors out of the UK, US, Africa as well. So please do join if you're looking for a program that has a mentorship element to it. The Global Women on Boards program is one that you should watch out for, and Hannah will be happy to give you more details. Thank you so much, and I want to hand back to Faith.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, Kirote. That was fantastic, just taking us through what's upcoming. So we'll quickly just get into our videos, so you can click on that. Please remain on mute. Then if you're able to, on your phone or on your laptop, you can also just take a screenshot with yourself, smiling and all that. We request for a consistent smile for just a few minutes, so we can be able to just get a picture. And you can do your own screenshots as well as we take the picture. I'm seeing a lot of people communicating and asking about getting this recording. You will get it on email, the email that you use to register. So don't worry about that. Soon as the recording is ready, it will be sent to you. So I'm requesting everyone to just have your videos on and to keep a smile on, and we will take a picture. And as the picture is taken, we thank you for staying with us till the end. Forgive us for going a bit over time, but thank you. Thank you. Okay, I'm getting a heads up that we're good. So thank you, everybody, once again. Have a lovely evening, and God bless you.
Thank you. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.